Hey everyone, Steve Salazar. I've been thinking about some things that are important to know when you're buying a hunting property. There's a lot of things to consider when you're buying property in general, but there's some extra things that come become important when you're buying a property that you want to hunt on. There's a certain activity that you want to do once you buy it, and you want to be successful at that. So these are some things that are important. About 6 things are important when you're buying a hunting property. Okay, one of the most important ones, or one of the 6 important ones, is check with your Texas Parks and Wildlife Department regulations for the county you're going to hunt in. Okay, it's important because they vary from county to county. The number of deer you can take, what kind of deer you can take, whether it's a buck or a doe, antlerless or antlered, and sometimes it's just antler restrictions, that make a difference. And in some counties, you can only take a buck. Okay, if nobody's seen a buck there in 5 years, you're not going to be successful. Okay, so it's important that you look up those regulations, look at the dates they started, which is in generally about the same across the state, just a few days difference, the north and south zone, central zone, so on, and see what those regulations are. Know them before you go in there and buy a property. Okay, um, so check out the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department app, and you'll get a wealth of information, and it's the official information. Okay, the second thing is the Property Owners Association. If you buy into a ranch subdivision, somebody takes 2,000-acre ranch, puts roads in there, plats it all out, records it in the county. All of a sudden, you have a subdivision, and they give it a name, and you can buy a smaller, more affordable piece of property for you to hunt on. Okay. Sometimes when that happens, there's a property owners association. Okay, and when you buy that property, you usually sign a paper that says you're going to abide by those regulations. Okay, so it's not like whether you want to participate or not. Those are the regulations established for that subdivision, recorded in the county. They call them either deed restrictions or covenants and that sort of thing. Okay, so it's an agreement that you sign that you will abide. Okay, and so some of those have to do with where you can place your structures. Some places they don't want a deer blind along the fence line or so many feet from the road. What kind of structures you can put up. Some have covenants or deed restrictions against day leases or weekend leases, and that sort of thing, or leasing out in general, or subdividing your property. So it's important to find out if there is an owner association, if there are deed restrictions. Find out what they are to make sure it's something you can live with, because once you sign on the dotted line, you're living with it. Okay, not all ranches have that. Some do. It's important to know. How do you find that stuff out? Well, here's the deal. Get yourself a ranch realtor. A ranch realtor knows the area. They're a professional. They understand the area. They might even hunt the area. Okay, they may live in the area, and so they're professionals. They're licensed by the state of Texas, and it's someone that you can count on for good direction, good advice, someone to represent you in making the purchase. The seller has a realtor. The seller has someone to represent them. You need to go to terms with someone to represent you. That way you can go to bat and represent you well. Get a good deal on your property, get the right contract, and so on. Okay, it doesn't cost you anything to use a realtor when you're buying a property. Most of the time, the seller pays for that service. Okay, so it's important to use one. The third thing, the size of your neighbors is important. If you're in a ranch subdivision, you may have, 4, 5, 6, 8, or 10 small neighbors, all within a mile or two. A lot of small properties, 30, 40, 50 acres. And so opening day of the deer season, you're going to have that many people out there probably shooting deer the same morning. Okay, so it's something to consider. You have large neighbors, much better situation. There's fewer people out there hunting. Also, if you want to get with your neighbors and start up a management plan, it's all voluntary because everybody has their own property. They do whatever they want on it. But if you want to get with your neighbors and they're willing, they're the same management minded, you can, agree not to shoot young bucks or that sort of thing. You can agree on some of these things and abide by them, and it makes for a better hunt for a long time. Okay. So if you have big neighbors, if you're buying a property that's big enough, well, then you can manage your own and you don't have to worry about your neighbors. Another thing about your neighbors is to Look at the fences. Is it all low fence, free range animals? Great. If it's is it all high fence and you're high fence on 3 or 4 sides, so you're basically high fence yourself. If you don't have enough wildlife in there, you're not going to get any. You have to buy it and bring it in, or you're not going to see much wildlife. Okay, and so it depends on the size of your property, where you have a breeding age herd and that sort of thing. So it's important to look at your fences and see what's there. The quality and abundance of the wildlife. Okay, that's huge. That's huge. It actually affects the property values. If there's a certain area where there's always good deer, good sized deer, healthy deer, and so on. Parts of Texas are real expensive because there's a good hunting area. It's important to find out what's there, the quality and the abundance of the wildlife. Where do you find that out? You can ask your realtor, for one. They should have some information. They're done their homework, and most good realtors are professionals. They do their homework. They know the area, okay? You go down to the coffee shop in town. Go down to the tractor supply in town. Go down to the feed store. The hunters are buying their feed there, their corn there, and everything else. Meet some folks. Check out the Facebook pages. There's some people there. They're in the area. There may be a Facebook group just for that particular area, that ranch subdivision. And you can get information that way. But do your research, do your due diligence. Again, your realtor is a good source, but it's up to you to find out what you're going to buy and where you're going to buy it at. Okay? So find out if there is good wildlife there, the abundance of wildlife, the quality of wildlife. That's important. Tax exemptions. Nobody likes to talk about taxes, and neither do I, but it's important. Does the property you're buying have an ag exemption, agricultural exemption, or a wildlife exemption, or no exemptions, just full tilt, commercial taxes? Okay, it's important to know. Your realtor can tell you about each property he shows you and what's there. If you buy a property with an exemption on it already, you have to apply for it again with the tax assessor. They'll tell you what kind of activities need to be maintained or kept up to maintain that exemption. If you don't, the price of taxes can be a huge difference, a very meaningful difference, substantial difference. I guess I said it enough times, that on the price of your property taxes. It can affect your payment of your financing or your yearly tax budget. If you're not financing, you got to pay the taxes on your own. The tax exemptions are important. A realtor will be your guide, and give you the information and point you in the right direction to find all that out. Okay? Easements. This is the last one, so I'm going to talk about it because it's real important. What's an easement? If you will, just a basic driveway, road, path through one property to get to another. And sometimes you go through several properties to get to the last property. Okay? Just picture this. You buy a property and you got to go through 3 different properties to get to your property. Your property is not fronted on the road, on the access on the county road or the highway or wherever it is. You don't have access to that directly. You have to go through other people's property to get to that property. Okay, that's called an easement. So some easements are just established. They've been that way for years. Everybody knows about it. Everybody agrees, and it's hard to cancel out an easement, to just close the gates and not let nobody in if it's already been established. But you may have to go to court. You have to get the sheriff involved or get a judge involved to get access. If someone buys a property in the front and yours is 2 properties back, and the guy in the front gets upset because everybody's leaving the gates open, that sort of thing, and locks all the gates, now you can't get in or out. You got to call a sheriff, get yourself in or out. You may have to get an attorney. You got to get with the courts. And so if it's a recorded easement, then it's recorded in the county. It's a lot less hassle, but you got to make sure everybody's in agreement. Okay, there's things to respect when you go to people's. If there's a gate closed, you leave it closed. If the gate's open, you can leave it open. If there's cows getting out, close that gate. It's important to watch people's gates and property because you're going through their property or they're coming through yours. Another thing about those easements, it's happened to me. I was showing a property one time, and I'm driving up this easement to get to this last property, and we've got maps and so on of where the property is and how to get there. And I'm driving by somebody's deer blind. 100 yards later, I'm driving by his feeder. There was nobody in there. It wasn't the middle of hunting season, but imagine if it was. And you need to get out of yours or to yours, and 2 other people are in their blinds. They're not going to like that. You won't like it either if you were the front property and people are driving by your blind or feeder. So if it's an issue with you, ask your realtor. Find out if there are easements on there. If there are, find out where they're situated, where your deer blinds are, and so on. If it's not an issue, you're great. Everybody knows each other. Everybody's happy. Not an issue, but something to consider. These are all important things to consider, important things to look at, to ask about. I can't overemphasize the use of a good ranch realtor is important. Do your homework, do your due diligence. The courthouse, the people in the community, always a good source of information. The county extension, you got to do your due diligence, and you get a wonderful hunting property where you can have years of a good time making memories. Okay. Any questions on any of this or any other topics you want about buying a hunting property? Give me a holler. It's 210-413-5219. Steve Salazar. I'm a realtor. I'm a ranch realtor. And I just wanted to bring you some information I was thinking about today. And if you have any other topics you want to ask about, holler at me. I can make a video about that or just deal with you directly. Share this video. I would appreciate it. Share the video. And thanks a lot. Have a good day.